glitches, bugs, and softlocks. They're rare, amusing events in video games that leave us with a little chuckle. But what if they were more than just a silly distraction? What if they were a competitive sport? Welcome to the Backseat Broken Games, where your favourite franchises go head-to-head to be crowned the champ of jank. This time, it's the SOFTLOCK Sprint, where 3 teams of plucky participants race against each other to get their playable character stuck in a way that makes progress impossible as fast as possible. First up, it's Team Freddy, represented by their most recent 3D outings. This brigade of bears may be the king of the genre and a proven glitch magnet, but since it's speed we're looking for and not necessarily quantity, can they still dominate? What's this? I'm getting an urgent report that you at home need to barricade your windows immediately, since every glazier's worst nightmare, Team Neighbor, has entered the fray. With only 2 games of this trilogy actually released at the time of recording, we're going to have to sub in a different game in place of the 3rd. Now, I could include one of the spin-offs, or maybe even one of the alphas to achieve that, but I think it might be a little bit more fun to get some variety and include a more friendly edition instead. And finally, if elongated arms are your spice, then you're going to love the length of Team Poppy's limbs, since it's actually getting kind of repetitive now. With 4 mainline entries in this series, we actually have the opposite problem from Team Neighbor, and are gonna have to cut one of the games from the roster to keep the team size down to 3. That game is gonna be Poppy Playtime 4. I'm sorry, it's nothing personal, Doey, I just despise you and everything you stand for. So, those are our competitors, but before we start, a quick word about the rules. Don't worry, it's pretty simple. We will be going through the games 1 team at a time, with each entry trying to achieve a softlock as fast as possible on their most recently available patch. The timer starts as soon as our playable character can move their feet, and ends as soon as they become stuck in some way that makes the game unwinnable without a menu restart. In other words, a softlock. Once all the softlocks have been achieved, the team with the lowest average time to softlock wins. Additionally, while this video is a truly collaborative process and pulled from the knowledge of a great many speedrunning discords and individual experts, thank you all by the way, all of the tricks do have to be performed by me, and it's my best time that will be counted. This means that some softlocks may be achieved slightly slower than what is optimal, but at the very least my skills, as well as my skill issues, will be consistent across the board. Following so far? That's great news, because we're done. So enough mucking about, let's get locking softly. First up for the Scare Bear bunch is Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, the first official FNAF game to feature full 3D exploration, and not coincidentally, one of the buggiest game launchers of all time. But with 3 years of fixes already applied, will finding a softlock be as simple as you'd think? Well, before we start our sprint, let's do a little reconnaissance and explain how the opening of the game is meant to unfold. See if you can guess where the fastest softlock might be. We begin with our mysterious protagonist smuggled inside Freddy Fazbear, and after a brief inspection, our feet hit the floor, and the game is on. Some amount of mandatory mucking about later, we escape Freddy's dressing room and very slowly crawl through a vent. I'm getting a hunch that this could be a little bit of time loss. After finally ejecting ourselves into Rockstar Row, we grab the pass to release the beast and ride our boy down a very long set of stairs. Then, in a, frankly, extremely impractically placed first aid booth, we watch an unskippable cutscene, make our way back upstairs, and promptly break up with Freddy. This leaves Gregory to outrun some pesky animatronics on foot, run up yet more stairs, and a few rooms later, we finally make it to the Pizzaplex entrance, only to be denied our escape. But what do you say we make escape impossible a little bit sooner? Let's go hunting for a softlock. The first thing that springs to my mind is this initial stairwell. Since in a previous video I found out that maneuvering Freddy in a particular way lets you walk up and over the railings, landing at the bottom of the stairs and saving a bunch of time. This had a risk, however, since landing in this area instead would get you permanently stuck. Bad for speedruns, but perfect for our purposes, and pretty flipping close to the start of the game. It sounds too good to be true, right? Unfortunately, I discovered that this has since been patched, so sadly, it is disqualified. Ruling that out then, what about this stairwell at the end of the tutorial instead? And wouldn't you know, hopping over this railing also gets us stuck, albeit mysteriously floating in the air this time. With absolutely no way to jump back out again, and with the sweet release of death also being denied to us, I guess the chicken just needs some alone time to process what she's even looking at. We have achieved a somewhat speedy softlock in 6 minutes and 28 seconds. I suppose all those slow, unskippable sections really start to add up. So let's not settle for that time, and let's see if we can find somewhere a little bit earlier in the game that cuts some of that out. While I explain, start the clock. In Security Breach, falling out of bounds usually respawns you back at the last save point you loaded from, since this is the developer's emergency precaution to keep the game on track and keep Gregory on solid ground. But a weird quirk of that system that has never been fixed to this day is that if you start a new game and never load any saves, the game just doesn't respawn you ever. And instead, it will just leave you falling into the endless abyss, softlocked for all eternity. So, let's do that to this orphan right now. Remember that incredibly poorly located first aid station? Well, there's actually a smaller area off to the side of that room that seems to have gotten a little bit less polished than the rest of the tutorial, since the upper half of this wall just straight up doesn't exist. I'm sure you can see where I'm going with this. So, by booting the game up fresh with no saves loaded, we can absolutely punt our mystery child through the early tutorial as fast as possible, and without even engaging in the first aid cutscene, run straight to the stairs nearby, climb on the railing, climb on the wall, and stop the clock. Just like that, we have successfully trapped this child in an eternal prison of pitch in only 2 minutes and 46 seconds. That is much, much better. It's a strong start from Team Freddy. But can the game's horror-focused DLC Ruin fare any better? Security Breach Ruin is the free-to-download Steel Wool Apology DLC. This beefy bonus campaign takes place in a now dilapidated pizzaplex as our new protagonist Cassie searches for Gregory after he got softlocked in the previous run. The intended introduction to the game is much more simple this time, so let's go over it real quick. As Cassie, we enter the pizzaplex via the lobby, awkwardly climb down a ladder, and grab a flashlight. Then we cut through a few scary rooms before getting hit by another unskippable cutscene at the elevators as she yaps to Gregory. This takes quite a while. When that's over, she climbs up the, honestly, pretty poorly maintained Veta shaft, heads through a vent, solves the first door puzzle, and after a bit more walking around, both her fragile spine and the title get dropped by Monty. This seamlessly leads us into the ruins of Jolf, but let's stop there. I've seen how Ruin ends, and things do not go well for Cassie. So before any of that can happen, let's find her somewhere nice and safe where she can never, ever escape. Unlike Security Breach, which I am very, 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 very familiar with. For Ruin and Secret of the Mimic, I needed to draft in a little help courtesy of the speedrunning Discord. Leads were initially very promising, with an out of bounds being possible only a few steps after starting the game. By wedging ourselves in some awkward collision and spamming jump, Cassie can ascend to the heavens, do a little bit of primary school parkour, and, seemingly deciding Gregory isn't worth the hassle, she can just leave the Pizzaplex and abandon the plot of the game in mere seconds. So that's problem solved, right? We can just cast her into the void like Gregory and call it a job well done. Well, sadly not, since jumping out of bounds now just kills us. Unlocking the softlock. With falling out of bounds thoroughly ruled out then, we're going to have to find somewhere else to use this new tech and get stuck instead. And where better to use a trick called an elevator jump than an elevator. While I talk you through it, start the clock. Upon loading into the game and taking control of Cassie, we proceed to do the extremely exciting strat of just progressing the game as intended for a while. This thrilling gameplay continues all the way up until we reach the elevator, at which point we do unfortunately need to sit through that entire walkie-talkie scene. And when that's over, we also need to very slowly climb this very long ladder. What a thrill. Once we do reach the top though, it's time to spring into action. Instead of taking the vent, we're going to rub our face in this corner and perform an elevator jump until we reach some funky collision. We then start to walk along it, but hold that thought. Side note. At this point, you may think that we can just softlock by jumping down the elevator shaft, since the ladder gate does close behind us, which should trap us down there. Sadly not though, since it turns out that Cassie has the extremely niche superpower of intangibility, as long as she's touching a ladder. Seems pretty situational to me, but I guess it does get her out of this scrape, so shut my mouth, I guess. No, if we do want to get softlocked, we're going to have to be a little bit more precise and perform a perfect double backflip from the railing straight into this snug little rubble hole, getting Cassie stuck in a somewhat speedy 2 minutes and 38 seconds. And hey, we even managed to preserve the canonical Ruin timeline by leaving Cassie for dead at the bottom of an elevator shaft. So, that's great too. But that's enough of all this horrible, youthful energy and positivity. Yuck. Let's give the gamers what they really want. A tired old man who just wants to go home and nap. It's time for our final Freddy team member, Secret of the Mimic. The latest game in the FNAF Steelwool oeuvre, Secret of the Mimic sees Arnold, an overworked technician, called into one last job of the day after 36 hours on the clock. Before we start softlocking though, as always, let's see what that shift would entail if we were being well behaved.
Arnold, hey buddy.
The game immediately kicks off with a very long phone call, but thankfully for once, this will not count towards our time since controlling Arnold's feet comes a little bit later. Once we pull up and grab the data diver, however, it's go time.
Good job.
With the obvious front door to the costume manor out of order, Albert cuts through the joint playground and statue storage area that comes standard with places like this, and after finally learning how to crouch at the age of 102, popping out every joint in his body, he finally enters the building for real. And now begins the mandatory modern FNAF long unskippable exposition extravaganza. Once we've learned all about this colourful selection of critters who are not characters in this game, we are finally free to explore backstage, regroup with dispatch, and learn about the task at hand. But that all seems like an awful lot of work, and my man Arthur really needs a nap. So let's see if we can't wrap things up for him without the whole doing his job part. For anyone somewhat familiar with the game, you already know my first port of call will be ghosting dispatch and submitting to the siren call of these nearby lockers. For those unaware, here's the long and short of it. In Secret of the Mimic, if you leave a locker and then walk back into it before the door completely closes, you will get stuck inside that door, allowing you to zip to the top of the object, kind of like what happened in Ruin. This is especially important in this game since Alfred can't jump, making this one of the very few ways to gain vertical height. Back at launch, this glitch was very famous and used by speedrunners to leap out of the map and beat the game in just a few minutes.
That's a pretty respectable run.
This would also be super useful for our purposes because in this game, getting out of bounds is back to being broken again. But being famous comes with downsides too. With this glitch sadly being one of the many casualties of the game's big September patch. Disqualifying it from this challenge is what I would say if the patch actually fixed anything at all. Yeah, for some reason this glitch just literally still works. I don't know why. It says it's been patched, but it just isn't. This means we can defy the patch notes to stay soft-locked forever in a supersonically fast time of... Okay, well that's just embarrassing. If it even needs to be said at this point, the problem is the same as always. In fact, it is worse than ever before, with the mandatory exposition song and dance in this game taking almost 2 full minutes on its own. So if Acorn wants to avoid dragging his entire team down, we're gonna have to find a soft lock before entering the building. Thankfully, once again, the speedrunners save the day. Start the clock. As soon as we gain control of Armand's toes, we grab the data diver and wait patiently to be let out of the van. There we go. Sprinting as fast as Archie's elderly legs will allow, we charge through the car park and statue repository with one location in mind. The area around the playground is meant to be inaccessible, but by deftly squeezing between this forklift and staircase, we can give this plank of wood a big old smooch, which teleports us directly on top of the playground. Look, I don't know either, let's not overthink it. Then we pause the game. While these squeeze and smooch tricks work best with unlimited frame rate, the jump you're about to see only really consistently works at 30 FPS. With that done, we take one final leap over the exterior fence, stopping the clock and helping Andreas quiet quit in a mere 58 seconds. Truly a lack of work ethic we can all aspire to. And yes, I know I left the timer running while it was paused, but what can I say? To me, menuing is part of the challenge. So, with that stellar performance by Arnold, that brings the final average time of Team Freddy to 2 minutes and 7 seconds. It's a strong start to the competition, but it's also undeniable that those plot-heavy scenes have really been holding the Freddos back. Let's find out if that's a fatal flaw or not, as we see which team is next. Door. Hello Neighbor is a game about a child and later aging millennial who becomes embroiled in a plan to expose his neighbor's evil deeds. It's also a member of the exclusive club of video games that lets me get a look at Metacritic's red background. But hey, at least D-Gome got muchissimo hype out of it, so good for them. In terms of the game itself though, how exactly does it play out? Well, that is a complicated question, since Hello Neighbor is kind of a semi-open world escape room. The game has several acts, which change the map and the wind conditions, but the pathway to that victory is often pretty convoluted. So instead of getting lost in that source, let's skip straight to my initial ideas, which will take us all the way to the dream sequence, that is, Act 3. A peculiar quirk of Hello Neighbor is how much it loves to present its Easter eggs in a way that makes it look like the game has been broken. With the relevant one in Act 3 being this intangible wall that hides an Unreal Engine missing script. Touching this will teleport you out of bounds, where you can explore a bit, as well as collect some novelty achievements. The reason why we're talking about it though is because at this point you can just walk to the edge of the map, jump off, and fall endlessly into the void. Our favourite. So that is definitely a softlock, but there are some pretty obvious downsides. With the major one being that this is all in Act 3, which is quite far into the game, and that's not even mentioning how long it takes to walk to the edge of the map to throw yourself off. If only there was some way to get fully out of bounds immediately, right at the beginning of Act 1. Oh. Well... Yup, the first of those Unreal Engine missing scripts is actually one of the very first things you can find in the game, teleporting you entirely out of bounds and leaving quite the first impression. I see. I see! What the hell was that? But as a boastful fisherman might say, there's a big catch. While yes, we do spawn out of bounds, we very quickly drop into another teleport that takes us straight back up to the map and into a cutscene. Additionally, to make sure that we definitely do get warped back up to the game, the devs even placed some walls around us as a funnel. So that is quite a lot of protections, but no protections are perfect. Because it turns out that hitting that teleport with a lot of speed actually carries that momentum over into the out of bounds. So with enough velocity upward, we may be able to fling ourselves so far over those protective walls that we can fully avoid the teleport below us. Thankfully, Hello Neighbor has no shortage of items that give you momentum. The actual problem is that they often give you too much momentum. By far the hardest part of this trick was trying to not crash the entire executable by flinging myself into a parallel universe. But with many thanks to the speedrunning Discord finding a more consistent setup, my wish was finally granted. Start the clock. After gaining control of our third child protagonist of the video so far, I abruptly turn left and grab a garbage bag. That isn't part of the setup, it's just that after crashing the game accidentally for hours, I was kinda zoning out. Then with a flick of the feet, we soar straight over the barrier, and there it is. Easily the fastest softlock of the video so far in a svelte and speedy 17 seconds, trapping our protagonist forever in a world of eternal slumber. Things are getting off to a phenomenal start for Team Neighbor. But if Hello Neighbor's so good, why haven't they made a Hello Neighbor 2? Hello Neighbor 2 follows a hotshot hipster journalist called Quentin as they investigate a worrying uptick in neighbors. One could even be living next door to you. Or maybe not, I don't know. Look, I haven't played this game outside of research for this video, and not to spoil things for you, but I didn't exactly get to see much of it. So what did I see? How is the gameplay meant to start? The game kicks off as Quentin crashes his van into an old barn. This whole section is mostly a tutorial for the controls as you search the premises for gears to open the door back out. You'll be using keys to open doors, collecting those gears, learn about breaking glass, and then use your shiny new crowbar to gain access to new areas, and more gears, and more tutorials, and you get the idea. Recover all the missing pieces and put them in their appropriate spots, and you are free to explore the rest of the game. But honestly, this barn is pretty roomy. You know, it's really hard to get your foot on the property ladder nowadays, and this place even has indoor parking. So what do you say we do our main character a favour, and get him softlocked here forever? So far in this video, we've gotten ourselves physically stuck once, and we've banished multiple children into the void, where they belong. But those aren't the only ways to get softlocked in video games, with this tutorial being absolutely full to the brim with key items that, if we happen to lose one of them permanently, would make escaping, and therefore progressing the game, completely impossible. That's why when the speedrunners made me aware of this hole in the barn that items could be disposed out of, I immediately had a plan. In order to get the very first cog, you need to use a key to unlock a door. So, booting up the game, I immediately grabbed and yeeted that key far out of reach, making any future progress completely impossible. Or I guess it's more accurate to say, that's what I hoped would happen. Because it turns out that in this tutorial about using keys are entirely optional, with this hole in the wall allowing crafty players to squeeze in, grab that gear, and squeeze right back out, unlocking this soft. So instead of losing a key to lose access to a gear, let's not be so greedy and just take the 1 extra second to eject the gear instead. I mean, that's what the speedrunners were suggesting anyway. I guess that's what I get for being creative. Start the clock. Upon gaining control, we open up the gate, grab the key, and unlock the door. Then, taking the gear, we quickly run it over to the gap in the wall and stop the clock. Yes, it really is that fast, from game start to softlock in only 11 seconds. That is barely enough frames for MatPat to even analyze. Bad news for the lore economy, but fantastic news for Team Neighbor, with 2 sub-20 second times so far. That sounds like our cue to leave the bad vibes of those previous neighbors behind and meet with some that are a little bit more friendly.
Open it immediately.
My Friendly Neighborhood is a 2023 survival horror game with a Mascot Horror coat of paint. In it, you play as Arnold, an overworked technician called in to one last job of the day, but things don't go... Wait. Sorry, my bad. Roll it back. In it, you play as Gordon, an overworked technician called in to one last job of the day, but things don't go quite as planned. The intended introduction to the game goes a little something like this. Climbing out of his van, Gordon heads straight to the reception of a nearby hotel where he meets Ricky the talking sock puppet. After a pretty long conversation, we grab a keycard that lets us get into the nearby TV studio, at which point you can explore a bit. Progression from here is a little bit open, but you'll generally end up grabbing the pistol, using it to free the falsely imprisoned circle key, and then gain access to the TV set itself. From here, there is so much to do, so much to see, but let's not do any of that. Look, I'm a man of the people, and Gordon isn't getting paid for any of this extra work. So let's get my man a well-deserved break, and by break, I of course mean the game.
Oh, jeez.
Now, not to alarm you, but when it comes to softlocking, My Friendly Neighborhood is uniquely poorly suited to the task. While games like Secret of the Mimic had no jump button, Gordon not only can't jump, but also has no sprint button, or even the ability to crouch. So, how the heck are we supposed to get this movementally challenged individual anywhere unintended? Thankfully, the MFN speedrunning Discord provided a ray of hope with a glitch I had never seen before. This plot-important key is surrounded by the insurmountable barrier of a 3-foot countertop, and since we can't just jump in, we have to do some busy work first. But that's where the softlock comes in, since by using that very strange glitch I alluded to earlier, we can walk on thin air and get ourselves stuck back there. Just make sure you kill the enemy there first, since they can just phase right through solid matter and ruin our plans. Now, this would just be a softlock, and our journey would end here. However, as I unfortunately discovered live on stream, Gordon possesses more superpowers than just levitation. Wait, what? How did I do that? We are not softlocked. We can totally walk over the top there. Indeed, it turns out that Gordon is my goat in more ways than one, and can walk straight up walls and other vertical surfaces whenever it takes his fancy. But at the very least, I did learn some universal time saves along the way. For starters, it's possible to skip that hotel visit entirely thanks to this semi-secret button. And this route even gives us the shotgun early as a lovely bonus.
Let's get writing.
Second, there actually is a sprint function in the game, although it's not exactly a button. Chocolate bars give Gordon a sugar rush like science has never seen before, increasing his speed substantially across multiple rooms. In an unbelievable stroke of luck, the game actually gives us a chocolate bar right at the start of the game, and since it's available before we get control of Gordon's feet, grabbing this snack actually costs literally no time at all. So with these extra tips and tricks in hand, I began glitch hunting offline to see if I could mountain goat my way into somewhere that I couldn't goat my way back out of, and I found this. In this dressing room, right after you get the circle key, it's possible to climb these boxes with the power of friction, then transfer that mountaineering ability to the nearby clothing racks. Then with just a little bit of jiggling in this spot between the two of them, something interesting happens. While it may not look like much, Gordon is actually entirely stuck in place, presumably wedged in some sort of collision. Without the ability to jump, and with walking doing absolutely nothing, Gordon is trapped here forever. And best of all, from the beginning of the game to here, only takes 90 seconds. Needless to say, I was very proud of myself, and after sharing my accomplishment with the speedrunning Discord, they immediately found something better. Okay then, start the clock, I guess. We start the run by opening our suitcase and immediately throating an entire bar of that sweet, sweet cocoa. Then by running to the button and opening the speedrunning shortcut, we are actually shockingly close to our final destination. Entering the garage, we make sure to close the shutters behind us for later, and we goat our way onto the shotgun, and then up onto the boxes. Finally, we do exactly the same walking on air glitch as before, all the way to this central area, and then by plopping the G-Man in this hole, we can stop the clock. Much like the clothing racks, while it may not look like much, Gordon is now irreversibly fused with this taxi, softlocked due to the lack of jumps once again, in an extremely friendly 31 seconds. With that, Team Neighbor has now submitted their third and final time, bringing this landowner lineup's average time to softlock to an incredible 19 seconds. That is frankly absurd. But whoa, stop the parades. It's not over yet. There is still one more team left to show us their buggy biceps and their glitchy glutes. So let's see if Team Poppy can possibly follow that act. The first game in the series of the same name, Poppy Playtime, follows an as-of-yet unnamed protagonist as they're called back to investigate an abandoned toy factory. Unlike the later entries, this game is essentially a free demo and takes less than an hour to complete, even casually. So how are things meant to play out in such a brisk playthrough? Upon entering the factory's reception area, you are given 3 choices to progress. A hand panel locked door in the center, a keypad locked door on the left, and a thankfully open door on the right. The room on the right is a dead end, but it does thankfully give you a hint to the keypad code for the door on the left. This room is also a dead end, but very importantly, it gives you the grab pack, an extendable hand that will finally let us open up that central door, as well as having a bunch of other functions that hopefully we will never have to use. Going through that middle door, we see every Crane game's favourite prize, Huggy Wuggy, waving hello to us, but we're gonna have to be rude and unfortunately wave goodbye instead. I know that we've only explored 4 rooms so far, but we are actually a decent chunk of the way through the game already. I did tell you it was pretty short. So let's call off the search for the missing employees for now, and what do you say we search for a softlock instead? Now, unlike Team Neighbor, Poppy Playtime is back to being a series I am fairly familiar with, and have actually found a number of softlocks in the past, with this one I found in my casual playthrough being my initial plan. Oh, I broke it in the bad way. Since by jumping at the side of this TV stand, we can clip inside its collision just right, becoming one with the pipe, unable to ever move again, softlocked in just 11 seconds, tying with Hello Neighbor 2 as our fastest softlock so far. It honestly feels too good to be true, and that's because it is. Yep, even though I discovered this softlock after Poppy Chapter 2 had released, making me assume they wouldn't have patched Chapter 1 since, the developers went ahead and updated Chapter 1 in 2023 to bring it more in line with the later games. The main features of this being new UI elements, reworked physics, and making everything really, really dark for some reason. And yes, predictably, one casualty of this update is that our beloved TV softlock no longer works. So, being put back to square one and facing the prospect of having to learn a whole new system of jank, I instead did the honourable thing and ran crying to the speedrunners again. The first softlock they discovered was in that central Huggy Wuggy room, since by hop, skipping and jumping your way up to this conveyor belt, and smooching a particularly sticky security camera, you can get yourself wedged in a different piece of collision and get yourself profoundly stuck in only 50 seconds. Compared to Team Freddy, that's lightning fast. But with the high bar set by Team Neighbor looming in the distance, we're gonna have to find something quicker. Do you remember that room with the door code hint right at the start of the game? We've just been skipping it up until now since I already know the code and just heading straight to the grab pack. But the door code isn't all that room contains. It also has a lot of physics objects, and as the speedrunning Discord discovered, physics objects are a softlocker's best friend. While I demonstrate, start the clock. Heading to the right side of the spawn location, we immediately give up on the plot of saving our colleagues and head inside a toy shop instead. Then we scramble our way onto the shelves and crouch on top of this box. With enough luck, button spamming and physics jank, we eventually snap in place and become frozen in the air, role-playing as our favourite marketable plush for eternity. All of this being achieved just 15 seconds after stepping foot inside the factory. Let's pause the game for just 1 second though, since I do have a footnote about this softlock. I actually tried to do this softlock a bunch of times and was able to wiggle myself free every single attempt. For this reason, I actually believed this wasn't a softlock and was trying to record footage for this video to demonstrate why it doesn't work. Of course, while doing that, I successfully did get myself softlocked. So that's just to say that if you want to attempt this softlock at home, it might take a few attempts. Returning to the results though, 15 seconds is a fantastic time by any metric. But let's not celebrate so soon, since the other two games in the team are going to have to keep up with this pace if they want to take home the dub. So I guess let's see if their second teammate can do exactly that. Poppy Playtime 2 is a direct continuation of the hunt for the missing employees that begun in Poppy Playtime 1, even beginning in the exact same room that the first game ended in. So as always, let's go over how this chapter is meant to work before we start looking for a way to get stuck.
This way.
Starting in the Poppy display case room, we double back and discover that a brand new door has been revealed by a piece of falling furniture. Following this corridor, we find a mysterious door that is locked for right now. Psst. Hello there, it's Backseat, even more from the edit here. Sorry, I don't really want to disturb him when he's monologuing about the many puzzles, enemies, and plot points contained in this second, much larger chapter of the game, but I do need to level with you. Watch this. That's it. In the very first room of the game, we can just pull a pillow onto our head, physics stop physicsing, and we are trapped in a cozy prison of our own creation with no way to escape. So I am very sorry to Yapseat here, but we really can forget the potential hours of content available, since we only need 4 seconds to softlock in this gaming masterpiece. Latest patch, need I remind you. In order to take the train and escape the factory once and for... Wait, why does it say 4 seconds on screen? With that incredible upset and new fastest softlock record, Team Poppy now has a real chance of snatching the crown from Team Neighbour. But how speedy does their final game softlock need to be in order to secure that dub? Well, for reasons of maintaining tension, I'm keeping that a secret. So it all comes down to this final game. Can Poppy Playtime 3 perform under pressure? Let's find out. Poppy Playtime 3 is another direct continuation of the previous game, with our botched train escape resulting in an unplanned trip to the factory's trash compactor. So let's move our way through the start of the game now, but let's have an extra keen eye this time for any potential and fast softlocks. The first two rooms of the junk squisher both seem promisingly janky with their huge moving walls, and after snaking our way through them, we pull ourselves straight up vertically using a new kind of grab point. This allows us access to a few more platforming rooms that definitely seem to have some sort of potential. Then we solve the first battery puzzle of the game, make a friend, and admire our handiwork from Chapter 2. From here, the introduction continues until we make it to Playcare, where the rest of the game takes place. I'd say that casually this introduction would take at least 5 minutes, including a 13-second unskippable call with the trustworthy child, smack bang in the middle.
Hey, can you hear me?
So let's focus our softlocking efforts before that phone call. Lucky for us though, the trash compactor isn't the only thing that's crushing it. With the Poppy Playtime speedrunning Discord really delivering the goods on this one, giving me 3 different early game softlocks. I am absolutely spoiled for choice here, so let me just pick my personal favourite, yoink, and let's see how long it takes. Start the clock. Spawning in, we head straight to the ramp and wait patiently for the crusher to open. Once we're through, we grab the pull-up handle and, getting our arms caught up in all kinds of machinery, finally pull ourselves up, becoming incorporeal and phasing our way into an unusually spacious softlock in only 15 seconds. So while our Poppy protagonist enjoys spending the remainder of their lifespan in this naughty box to think about what they've done, or maybe haven't done, I don't know the law, let's move over to the final results. It's all come down to this. So much game progression was sacrificed here today for the chance of taking home gold. But which team's breakneck speed was the most broken? The winner of the first ever Backseat Broken Games with a blisteringly fast average time to softlock of only 11 seconds is Team Poppy. What a team, what a performance. And let's not forget our runners-up. I'm so proud of both of you, even if nobody else is. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, let me know in the comments, along with what games you'd like to see face off against each other in another gauntlet of glitchiness. And don't forget to subscribe, or you might miss it. As always, if you're a long-time watcher, there's a bunch more ways to enjoy my videos and support me, including the VOD channel, as well as channel memberships. But most of all, thanks for being here at all, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.